you have to first absolutely love what you do. And if there were anything else available for me to do, I wouldn't do it. This is the only thing that I want to do, is run this restaurant and serve guests. If you remember that the whole time, you'll get through whatever there is.
No one makes magic in business like Disney. Join us as we hear from Disney cast members, influencers, and enthusiasts to uncover the secrets of what it takes behind the scenes to make Disney such a successful and well-loved brand. We will hear their journeys, inspirations, and have some good old-fashioned Disney fun along the way. So relax, pull up a chair, be our guest, and let's get down to Bippity Boppity Business. Today's guest is someone who blends Disney magic, business, and culinary expertise, Chef Dennis Chan. Go, Dennis. Go, Chef. That's my chef. Coming from a family with a long history in the restaurant business, our special guest has a rich background that's perfect for our show. His time at Disney gave him invaluable insights into creating unforgettable guest experiences. But Dennis didn't stop there. He took his passion to the next level by opening Blue Bamboo in my local hometown of Jacksonville, Florida, Duval, where he combines classic cooking techniques with traditional Chinese flavors. He's also the author of 2 cookbooks, Hip Asian Comfort Food and Let's Eat. Chef Dennis serves on the Jacksonville Tourist Development Council, won the 2018 Neighborhood to Nation Recipe Contest by General Mills, and in 2022, the Small Business Administration of Florida named him Business Person of the Year. Whether you're an entrepreneur, a foodie, or someone who loves great guest experiences, Chef Dennis has something inspiring to share. We're excited to have him on the show, talk about his journey, and share his wisdom. Chef Dennis, welcome to the podcast, and thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me in this happy place.
Yes, I'm so glad you were here. We were just chit-chatting a little bit behind the scenes, and before we get too into the details, I noticed that during your time at Disney around the 90s or so, happened to be the same time one of our prior guests, Lee Cockrell, former VP of Walt Disney World, was also in leadership there. Isn't that so funny?
Absolutely. What a great leader that Lee is.
Yes, yes. So we'll get into that a little bit and some of the things that you've learned there. But if you could, we read your bio, looked at your experience. I wanted to see if you could capture the essence of your favorite childhood memory with your grandfather back in time in that kitchen. If you could encapsulate that within a single dish, what would that dish be and why?
Well, there's so many dishes that I got to watch my grandfather make in his classic Chinese American restaurant kitchen. And probably the one dish that stands out in my mind is shrimp with lobster sauce.
Shrimp with lobster?
Yes, and you really don't see that on menus very often anymore, but that is a classic Chinese American dish that was made out of necessity. And, first of all, I watched how he cooked the shrimp perfectly, how he made the sauce and thickened it just the right way, and just as, how he served it perfectly. And shrimp with lobster sauce comes from when Chinese restaurants used to have lobster on the menu. It was called Cantonese lobster, and they would cook that, and the sauce would have ground pork in it, and an egg would make this nice textury, velvety gravy.
Yes.
And so that would coat the lobster, and that's how you would eat it, just chopped lobster cooked in that sauce. Well, as lobster started getting more and more expensive, they started to make it with shrimp instead of with lobster, and it was still called lobster sauce, but made with shrimp. And so that dish is just a perfect example of things that I learned from my grandfather.
Yes. I love that you share that, because I find whether you are a chef or whether you are an entrepreneur that in a different field, there's a lot of things that we take from our childhood that inspire us and help us really navigate the rest of our life. And they're really core memories, right?
Yes.
So, when I was thinking about this interview with you, I was thinking about the movie Ratatouille, when the food critic sits down and, he has that first bite of the food and it just gives him this flashback to that one of those first moments where he had that home cooked meal with his family, right?
Yes.
So as a chef and as a business person, those moments must have been really pivotal in your growth and in your career. But part of the reason why we brought you here is you're also a Disney fan, but even better, you had experience at Disney. And you had a fascinating career at Disney, from being a VIP tour guide in Orlando, Florida, to all the way in Taipei, Taiwan, teaching orientation. How did working at Disney influence your approach to guest experience? What got you there in the first place?
Well, I started, I was recruited out of college to do a college program out at Disney. And you've probably heard many guests say they started on the college program, but that's a great program where they introduce college students and graduates to how Disney operates. And part of that experience is they allow you to earn through taking classes either a master's degree or a doctorate degree.
A doctorate? I didn't hear about the doctorate.
Oh, the doctorate, yes. So if you take all the classes that they want you to take, then they will award you a doctorate degree. And so I earned a doctorate degree, and I carry those lessons that I learned while I was there all through what I do now. Part of Traditions, which is the program that I taught when we went over to Taiwan, you are taught that there are 4 keys to success to the Disney parks. And it's safety first, courtesy second, efficiency, and then show. And so those 4 items, if you keep them in mind and in that order, it helps you decide every step of how you behave in business.
Well, I think even in cooking too, I mean, in the kitchen, safety first, right? That's probably a huge, important facet of running operations every day. But the interesting parallel to that is even if you are, a service-based business as an entrepreneur, like all of those keys really are important to how successful your operation is. What's something that pleasantly surprised you about your time working at Disney that you still hold dear to this day?
Well, there's a few things, but the one thing that stands out most is Disney and my time there, we were able to get everyone to follow the same goal, which was to make sure that our guests had the best time that they could have while they were in the parks.
Yes. And I think whether you're trying to do that for your guest in a restaurant or, you are doing that as a marketer or something for your client, having the best time possible, that experience it's almost even more valuable than the product itself in a way, right? Like I think about, for example, if I made myself a PB&J sandwich, I'd probably make it really quick and whatever and be out the door. But if my mom made me one, she might, throw in a little treat, write me a note or something. And those little pieces to that experience are what make them so memorable. So not only in Orlando, where at the time you said also there were animators actually during your VIP tour season, if you will, in Orlando. Is that right?
Oh, yes. When I started at Disney and on the college program, my first job was to give the tour at the animation studios at Disney MGM. And so we would walk through the animation studios every day and take tours, and we'd be able to say, hey, they're working on Hunchback, or hey, they're working on Mulan, and you would actually see them flipping just like in the old days. So
I miss that form of animation. I really think they need to do more with the hand-drawn because it just really brings it to life. Yes, that must have been amazing.
Well, it's amazing to think that someone has taken a pencil or pen and drawn what you are looking at, and you're you're experiencing all these great emotions from just watching what someone has created.
Well, I think similarly, if somebody makes food with love or with care, you can also maybe, not literally, but maybe sense the emotion or the passion that went into the dish as well, which I'm sure maybe you're your own creator in that way with the dishes that you make.
Well, someone taught me a long time ago that when someone tastes a dish, they can tell whether you are happy or sad or could care less while you were making that dish. And so I think about it all the time, and I think, oh my gosh, you're right. You can tell this guy really didn't like what he was doing, or they really loved putting their heart into it.
Putting your heart and soul into it. And so, talking about heart and soul, I mean, your passion and dedication to guest experience went and took you to Taiwan, which what an amazing adventure that was to go all the way there. Tell us about what teaching orientation for Disney there was like, but just your experience as a whole. Like you were just here in Florida, and then you just decided, okay, I'm going to go to Taiwan now.
Well, it's a totally different thing. And back then, this was before Shanghai Disney was announced and Hong Kong Disneyland was open. But, they were trying to test the waters of that part of the world and see if the world over there would be as receptive to Disney as we are. They had Tokyo Disneyland and Hong Kong Disneyland, but there's not one in China yet. So they had a traveling fair that went through Singapore and Taipei, and it was pretty much a blow up Disney World. And so they would invite kids in, they could play. And so we had to teach. They hired a group of us over from the parks, and we'd have to go over and teach new cast members, just how Disney did its work. And, we were able to bring out those emotions and our goal was to make sure those cast members had the same, group and goals as we do here in America at the Disney theme parks.
Well, talk about how amazing that is as a business standard, right? To be able to create a presence in one part of the world and then internationally be able to create a similar affinity for that brand in another part of the world. I mean, what were some of the things you learned about working, internationally that were a little different? Like, I'm sure there were maybe a culture shock or two.
Big time culture shock. It's just a different, we grew up, with Disney all around us.
Right.
So here you're trying to show the good of Disney and the love of Disney to these people that were just there because it was a job for them, right?
Right.
So you hire by smiles, you hire by the way people treat other people, and then you are able to teach. One of the things that it was hard for us to teach was show, the quality of show. So when we teach show in America, we taught, well, if there's garbage, you pick up the garbage, and there's a garbage can every 10 feet, and you make sure it's put away.
Right.
Well, over there's so much garbage that just goes on the floor that it was just
offensive.
Yeah, it was hard to teach people to clean up after that. But once they're around and they see that it makes a big difference if you have a clean environment to walk into, they're like, oh, they're more apt to continue that, and make sure that it stays that way.
That's cool. So when you did that experience, was it an opportunity that was offered to you, or was it something that you applied for and kind of like lottery style got in a way?
Well, they first wanted someone that could speak the language, and luckily I was taught that language in college.
Yes.
And then they wanted someone that could understand the culture, and I grew up in a Chinese American household, so able to translate those things.
Yes, like the soft skills are unspoken, like communication.
And they felt that I wouldn't offend anybody. So.
Yeah, yeah, you're pretty chill, Chef Dennis. I don't think you'd be offensive to anybody in any way. So let's kind of keep your story going here. you often, talk about in your videos, or just I've read in your bio as well, that you actually graduated from the Culinary Institute of America in New York. And then you started working with Ming Sai on a popular cooking show called on PBS called Simply Ming. Also really cool. How did you end up doing that? What was that role like? Did you actually work with him on the show or after? I'm just curious.
Well, the CIA is the Culinary Institute of America.
Yes.
That is the best place to learn how to eat.
How to eat.
And they do teach you how to be a chef, and they teach you how to cook, but really you're learning how to eat, because through that you know how to make the stuff after you can taste it. So when it came time for externship, I would, when I was in class, I would come home back to my dorm and I'd turn on the TV, and there would be Ming starting his brand new show on the Food Network.
Yes.
And so I called him on a whim.
Called him?
I called his restaurant.
Okay.
And I said, I'm looking for an internship. I'll send you all my stuff. And he, without really interviewing me, he said, "Can you start next week?"
Stop it,
And
really?
yes. So his restaurant had been open maybe 3 or 4 months. And so he was ready to, his business was really good. And so he was gaining popularity on TV. And, he's had several shows since then.
Right.
Food Network, PBS.
All of them.
All of them.
Yes.
And now, he's he's one of the Iron Chefs.
Yes.
So, but I was there in the beginning, pretty much when the first year his restaurant was open. He hadn't had a cookbook yet. So I got to do all the prep for his cookbook as his intern. So that was really neat, because I'll look through today, and the cool thing is I have a friend who I gave a copy of the cookbook to, just as a gift. Here's what I've done this summer, and I put Post-it notes on all the pictures that were in them, and I would say, I cut these, I cooked this, I did the, and I had all these little memories like Post-it on that book, and I don't remember those things now, but the friend showed me the book recently, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did this. But, it was just neat to be there at that time, and to see how Ming interacted with the community. And, because he's not Disney, and all that I had known up to that point was Disney. And to see how someone in business can do these things without that Disney training was really a cool thing.
That is amazing. And I also, it must have been a wonderful learning experience as well. To be honest, I look at cookbooks and maybe I don't think about the work that goes behind those pictures and actually cooking the food.
Yeah.
But, from that time, what did you learn, or what were some key takeaways that influenced both your cooking and maybe some restaurant management tips that maybe some wisdom he sprinkled into your day-to-day when you were working with him?
Well, he treated all of us so well.
Aww.
And there were 3 sous chefs and me, the intern, and then there were a few line cooks there. And he always, even after hours, he would say, let's go and have late night food. We would drive into Boston. As a group, we'd all have dinner. And, it was just a nice time to know each other outside of work, because when we were at work, we were work.
Right.
And even at Disney, some of my best friends still today are people that I worked with when I was there. So it's that time outside of work that really you have to bond and get to know each other real well to have long-time relationships with.
Right. And of course, if as a leader, if he is setting that as a precedence to have time away from the job in order for the team to really connect outside of work, I feel like that will help you also during the job too, whatever work that is, to feel like you're all in this together from high school. But no, that's so cool. And there are certain, I think there's certain cultures that also prioritize that as well too. So I watch a lot of, from a different Asian culture, I watch a lot of videos regarding Japanese culture and their food and stuff like that. And that's a big part of their culture as well, is grabbing drinks after a long day of work as well too. So I'm glad that you were able to have those relationships, and you said you still have friends to this day from that time.
Yeah.
Wow.
From the time in Boston with Ming and also the time at Disney.
All right. Well, I mean, if Chef Ming invites you to something, I need to be there just to supervise.
All right.
Just so we can have a food, supervision thing together, maybe, or Disney related too. I don't know.
Well, every time he comes down to this area, I'm always, I always meet up with him.
Okay.
And yeah, he did a few demonstrations at Publix.
Really?
That's our local grocery store.
Yes.
And really, got to hang out with him and show him the best Jacksonville has to offer.
Right. And I read as well too that you had some experience teaching at Aprons at Publix as well.
Oh,
Is
yes.
that right?
Yes, at Publix
Wow. Wow. Well, you need to teach me a little bit because I'm very, very preliminary in my cooking skills.
Happy
so
to.
But let's move forward and kind of take more of a deep dive into your restaurant, Blue Bamboo. First of all, the restaurant, congratulations for, over 28 years being open and operating. But I'm wondering, what was your vision for the restaurant and how has it evolved since you first opened it back in 2005?
Well, when we first opened, I thought, okay, I'm just going to continue this family legacy and grow this legacy. My family's had Chinese restaurants in town for over 80 years. And so now it was like, okay, who else is going to do this? Because it really means something with all the friends and all the just great community that we've built by people dining in my family's restaurants. How do I continue that? So I opened Blue Bamboo with that in mind. And, today we've grown it and we've been able to grow it through community involvement and we've been able to just grow to the point where we're the first place that people think of for their big birthdays, for their weddings, all occasions. We've watched generations grow up. Right now, we are, one of our best customers. Her grandmother and grandfather were regulars at my family's restaurants before, way back in the 70s. So, they're multi-generations of people that we just, we're friends, we're family, we're community.
And, that's so important. One of the big themes of our conversation today that I wanted to focus on is legacy and longevity. I think every business owner, restaurateur or not, really has that moment where they go, okay, is this greater than I am? And if it is, how do we continue that passion and how do we continue that work? And, over that 80 years, there must have been something that you had to do, which is there's a balance there, right? What is that balance? How do you balance that honoring tradition and the need for innovation in your business while still, continuing that legacy?
Well, a few years ago, as a Disney employee, you get to do fun things like you interview for this position, that position, and they had chosen me as a semifinalist for the ambassador program.
Oh, really?
And the ambassador program was it was really the biggest pageant that Walt Disney World could put on. And it was cast members choosing cast members to represent them out in the community. And so one of my favorite quotes from Walt Disney is, "It's kind of fun to do the impossible."
Yes.
And, that's kind of how we look at, with the restaurant. We look at running the restaurant that way.
Right.
And, 3 years ago, we got to build our dream restaurant. And we built it with the idea of let's use the latest technology. Let's have the space that we want to be able to service our guests.
Yes.
And, one bit of technology that we have that has come from, we still have that element of hospitality and making sure we know our guests and that we, take care of them along the way. But we have added a server robot.
A robot?
So yes, we have Bowie, who is our robot food runner, and he helps the servers out. And what that really does is, he'll run the food from the kitchen to the table so that the servers can better service their guests, and they can stay near the table without having to run back and forth as much to get things.
Right.
And but that little bit of technology and that little cutting edge helps us, push hospitality forward.
And it's also an entertainment aspect as well. I'm sure it brings a smile to your guests' faces when they see this cute little robot guy come up to the table.
I always thought before we started having Bowie, I thought that the kids would love Bowie, right? But it's the adults, the ones that are over 60, that are reaching for their phone as soon as the robot comes out. So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
So we've talked a lot about the positive sides of Blue Bamboo, the innovation and all of that, but I'm sure that there's days where it's not always so easy. It's not blue skies and, sunshine guaranteed every day in a restaurant. So, how do you, what's the secret to the continued growth and longevity of the restaurant? And how do you push through the challenges that arise when they inevitably do?
Well, people ask that same question in the form of, how do you keep going? Because you have to first absolutely love what you do. And if there were anything else available for me to do, I wouldn't do it. Like this is the only thing that I want to do is run this restaurant and serve guests. And so that's the number. If you remember that the whole time, you'll get through whatever there is. Right. So when there's times that are slow and I'm wondering, gosh, why am I in this business? Because it's a slow time, and I focus on other things like my YouTube channel, or focusing on catering, or focusing on just doing parties for people. So we just there are other things for us to worry about. We're always too busy to have a self-pity party about when we're not busy.
No, I love, it's really the same mindset of Walt Disney's keep moving forward ideology. It's instead of sitting there and going, oh, we're slow, that's it, I guess there's nothing to do. It's, well, what else can we do that's going to be fulfilling and also beneficial to the company and the team? And I think that's a great lesson for anybody listening and going through a slow season in their business, especially, for someone like me. I've learned just recently what the slow months even are. I didn't even know that before. So I think once you know, that's half the battle. And
that's when you have to work the hardest.
Yes, that's when you have to work the hardest. Right. I love that. So back to the community. Generations coming to the restaurant and having that strong presence in the Jacksonville community. How do you continue to build and maintain that strong local presence and, those partnerships? And what advice do you have for other entrepreneurs who are looking to do the same in their local community as well?
First of all, that is the most important thing you can do for your business as a small business, is to get to know your community and serve your community however you can. One of the things you mentioned, I serve on the Tourist Development Council, and it is not a paid position, but it is something that, you're helping decide what events can come to the community and what events that the city will support. And through that, people remember you and people think of you first. And whether it be social media or these events, if you're there and you've shown support for these events and these organizations, they'll come back and support you also.
That's so important. It's having the servant leadership mindset, but also on the plus side of that is that presence within your local community is supported by the government as well too, right? So I'm sure there's some moments where they're like, oh, maybe we should have a meeting and who's going to cater the food, and then you're like, well, we just happen to do that. So it's kind of a win-win.
Top of mind,
right?
Yes.
Is there anything else that you've done that may be a little more non-traditional or not the first thing that would come to mind that's also helped grow your business as well too?
Well, you have to seek things where business is. So say, we're a restaurant. So people come out to eat. But if they're not thinking about you first, they're not going to come out to eat.
Right.
So one initiative that we're doing now is we're reaching out to our local groups. Like there's some nursing homes near our restaurant.
Oh.
And, you know, so some of those days where it's not so busy during lunch, that's where my general manager has reached out and said, hey, bring your local bring your groups,
Yes.
Bring the bus. We'll pay for the bus driver to eat, we'll treat their bus driver or something like that, just so that we can, the business is there.
Right.
So on a restaurant level, that's a great way to get people in. But also groups like, business meeting groups, they are always looking for places to have lunch meetings or
like networking events
yes.
or clubs or guilds.
Yes.
Yes.
And if you have the space for it, that's a perfect venue during an off-peak time for you to host those events.
That's that creative thinking that we Disney fans really love, right? If they're not walking in the door, go where the people are, right? Ariel,
Right.
go where the people are.
Yeah.
Find them. I love that. So,
And another thing that we do is we do cooking classes once a month. So that's something that you're giving back to the community because you're teaching them how to cook
yes.
and where to get the ingredients for everything. But they'll remember you for the restaurant when you have special events or when they need to come out to dinner and they don't want to cook, but they want you to cook for them.
Right. I want to emphasize that because I think it's an immersive experience, right? Which is very correlated to the kinds of things that we like to experience at Disney, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think from, maybe this year and moving forward, we're going to see a lot more of these immersive type experiences to help further your brand's reach and in your business, whether it's restaurant or not. But especially in restaurant, what a smart way to go, okay, we have this beautiful space, we have this facility, like let's make an event out of this, right?
Yeah.
Wow, I need to do a cooking class. That's awesome. So, on the theme of creation and food, let's have a little bit of a creative Disney question here, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So I want to imagine that you wake up tomorrow and somebody hit you up and they said, boop, 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 hello, Chef Dennis, is that you? And you said, yes. And they said, yeah, we're from Magic Kingdom here at Disney, and we have an exclusive event, but we need you to create a dish for a specific character, right? And you're like, obviously I can do that. That's exciting. What character would you choose, and what would the dish be?
Oh, gosh. Remy.
Remy.
Who else? Remy.
Remy.
Remy. We have our Remy
We have
right
a
here.
Yes. So would you do a ratatouille then? Or something
well, yeah,
different?
because Remy's character has the best taste of any Disney character,
True.
right? So he has the best sense of smell,
Right.
the best sense of taste.
Yes.
And so why wouldn't a chef want to make the best of that?
Correct.
So-
to meet up to the challenge. of
Yes,
that. Right.
that's right. You have to live up to the character. So it would be Remy's ratatouille,
Yes.
just like the movie.
Yes.
But for me, because our brand is a little, it's Asian.
Right.
So we would either take that ratatouille and make pot stickers out of it, or make spring rolls out of it, and then have just a nice flavorful remoulade sauce with the either spring rolls or dumplings.
Yes. Oh, I need to try that. I'm glad you didn't say Winnie the Pooh because I feel like just honey would have been too easy, right?
That would be delicious, though.
But the honey is delicious.
Honey is
Maybe
delicious.
if we did Winnie the Pooh, though, we would do like a different take on it.
He
right?
ate it all.
He ate it already.
Yeah.
We didn't have any left to use for the dish. That's awesome. Chef Dennis, looking back on your journey, is there a particular moment or achievement, one of the many that you've had, that really stands out as a defining moment in your career? And if you went back to your 15-year-old self and that drive-through, what would you tell your younger self?
You know that when I was at the CIA, the Culinary Institute, that really taught me a lot about food, but it also taught me a lot about relationships, and because I had already worked at Disney at that point. So I thought, there's really, with the connections at Disney and with my knowledge of food now, and the time that I'm here with all these people that really are passionate about what they do, it just taught you that it's really who you know and how you know these people that can give you the confidence to succeed later on. And there's a story I have about Lee Cockrell from my time at the CIA.
Yes.
And at the CIA, when you're in one of the early classes, which is like maybe 6 months into your first year there at the school, you the garde-manger class, you make all these beautiful food items, and they have a grand buffet for the graduates that are 2 years ahead of you. So they always bring in a guest speaker at that time, and it's always someone important in the hospitality industry. And so you're there and you present your food, and, they go to the president of the university takes the honored guests through the buffet and is so proud to show off all this stuff. Well, they see a few people, and then they get to me, and the first thing out of my mouth was, "Hi, Lee," to Lee Cockrell.
No, he
was our guest speaker at that time.
Oh my
and
gosh.
so, the president of the university is totally offended.
He's mortified.
By the fact he's mortified, and he gives me the look
He's
of
like,
death.
Why did you just adjust hardly,
like
eyes?
I have offended him because I called our honored guest by first name.
You're like, "What's
Disney,
up, buddy?"
And Disney is a first name company. And so I had sat in many times with Lee's Circle of Excellence. And, he used to have groups where he would just bring cast members in, and we would just talk about what's going on in the parks, what's going on in our departments. And so, I really did know.
You're like,
I really did know Lee. And so I showed him, then I showed him what the food was, and we reconnected a little bit. We talked real briefly, and then they moved on. But I will always remember the look on the president's face, and it was just. But there again, it's who you know and how you know people.
Well, maybe he gave you a couple extra points,
And,
just to help you out because he knew. You know what I mean? But no, really, that's really cool. What a funny story.
Yes.
That's so true, because in life you really never know who you're going to reconnect with and at what moment that you will have that connection with them. But that would, I'm pretty sure that would be really embarrassing for someone who didn't know that you were on that.
It blew him by surprise. And,
oh my goodness.
But there was working at Disney, there were plenty of chances to connect with just people you never would think of. As a VIP tour guide, my guests were Martha Stewart. Every time she came to the parks, she was my guest. Tyra Banks.
Wow.
Wolfgang Puck. And so, I got to know these people, Mariah Carey, real well.
Wow.
And because they would come multiple times to the parks, and every time we were assigned to them to make sure they got where they needed to go in the parks.
So I want to ask you a question about that, because that is a level of guest experience that is even more involved and requires extra attention to detail and care. It's almost like if you were, whatever business you were in, it's a luxury brand or a high profile clientele, right? So what are a couple of the things that specifically for maybe that tier of guests that we will say that you found to be very important that you think we should learn about?
Well, you're always thinking ahead, and you're always thinking ahead to, okay, what are we going to show this guest next, or where are we going to take this guest next? And and it's different for every type of guest.
Right.
So like for Tyra, we would think about, okay, we're going to go to this attraction next. Let me get the car ready, and then I'll put her on the attraction, and I'll have the car ready behind the attraction, and we'll go, and then go to the next place. With Mariah, it was much of the same thing, but one thing we did was she wanted to go to she flew in from New York. She wanted to go to the Tower of Terror, and then she wanted to go to Splash Mountain.
Okay.
So after Tower of Terror, she wanted, she knew she was going to Splash Mountain. She didn't want to get wet. So we had to make sure that we had the bathrobe from the Tower of Terror gift shop for her to wear.
The robe and the poncho for the queen, yes, we understand.
For when she went down on the plunge.
Wow.
And so, and then, say Wolfgang Puck, if it's a press event like he was there for many times, we had to think ahead about where are we going for the next interview for, the opening of his big Wolfgang Puck Cafe.
Always be thinking ahead and personalizing that guest experience too. And maybe with some of your own guests that return to your restaurant, your regulars, there might be some things that you do to customize their experience if you've met them.
It's the same thing, and we know, okay, this guest likes lobster, so let's always have a lobster just in case they want it.
Yeah.
And we have guests that come, from Atlanta, all the way from Atlanta. They'll fly down to come have dinner with us, and same thing. They love lobster. They love a whole fish that is fried, and we put our signature sweet and sour sauce on it.
Yes.
So we kind of have to know, and technology helps us a little bit with that kind of stuff.
So we can make notes on our systems and not have to remember it all.
But you really need to remember it because technology can fail, whereas your memory needs to be on it.
And that's the sign that. Oh, are you? Okay, sorry. And that's a sign that you really care when you take the time to remember and make that effort, because when you do have that passion, it comes full circle to what we were talking about earlier. All the little details really do come together to make that beautiful experience. What is something that I'm going to go a little bit off the cuff here and ask a question just as we've been talking that I'm interested in. What is something that somebody listening today who is kind of having a hard time in their business and they're looking to maybe be encouraged, what's something that you would tell that person listening?
In the early days of the restaurant, when I would think, oh, it's kind of slow, and what do I do? And I would ask my regular guests, and friends, I would say, okay, what do I do? And the best advice is keep plugging ahead, full steam ahead. Don't lose sight of what you're doing. Don't lose sight of why you're doing it, and it'll be okay. And, you asked earlier about what would you tell my 15-year-old self? That's the advice that I would give, is just do what your heart tells you to do and keep going.
That's beautiful. Well, Chef Dennis, this has been a lovely interview. I so appreciate the time that you've taken today to tell us about your journey and your experience, and talk about your restaurant as well. So, as we wrap up, if I won't tell Donald Duck, but I did hear that one of your best dishes at Blue Bamboo is the roasted duck. But if people want to try that roasted duck, where's the restaurant? And also, if they want to connect with you for other things, how can they best connect with you?
Our restaurant is in Jacksonville on San Jose Boulevard in an area called Mandarin. And our YouTube channel is Chef Dennis Chan, and also Facebook and Instagram, Chef
Amazing.
Dennis Chan.
Chef Dennis Chan. Well, it's been an honor and a pleasure. If everyone here today is interested in learning more, we'll have that information in the show notes below. But thank you so much for listening. Have a magical day. And this has been Bippity Boppity Business.